I was thinking like, what the hell? Well, January just came in like the 50, like at 50s, you know. we had December. December was nice. We had some high 50s and sunshine, and now like, where the heck did this wind come from?
The wind has not stopped for
I know.
even at night. It's crazy.
I don't even want to go out.
I know. We have not been
It
going
is
out.
really
It's
like messing with my rollerblading.
Yes, it's like cabin fever, something fierce. But we have a very exciting show today. We have a very special guest that we've been waiting to have on for a while. Her name is Naomi, and her background is clinical medical science. She worked for many years in a hospital setting specializing in microbiology. She joined Integrated Health Alliance 3 years ago, first as a member of the clinical staff, and now her role includes operations. She's incredibly passionate about helping women get the medical care they need. She believes the greatest barriers for women to have hormonal health care is validation and access, and she's passionate about changing that. Welcome, Naomi.
Well, hello. Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for having me. And thank you, Robyn.
Oh, we are excited to have you here.
Yeah, so I shall say that we met at our yoga studio, and then you follow each other on Facebook, and then, Instagram. I'm an Instagram person. And
Same.
I've been following your journey, it feels like over the last couple of years, and it's just this beautiful transformation, and I thought we have to have our guests hear about this.
No, it has been that, and I'm just so excited to even be at this moment to talk with you guys, because from the beginning, we've realized, wow, these conversations are not taking place in the doctor's offices, and women are not able to get the care that they want. So what are they doing? They're talking about it at the yoga studio. That's, or in the bathroom, or while you're getting ready, or, over wine with your girlfriend. And we're having these conversations, but they're not happening mainstream. And if these conversations aren't happening, much less is the care or the treatment plans. That's even further off. And so to be able to now bring these sorts of conversations mainstream, and you see it on Instagram, right? More and more accounts are talking about that. There's some amazing books on it. I love it, and I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you here. And I do think that what ends up happening is you start seeing someone and you see that they're healthy and their vitality is so high, and you drag yourself in, to the studio, and you're like, I barely got myself here. I feel terrible.
Did I brush my
act
teeth?
Terrible. Yeah. Did I brush my teeth? My hair? It's okay. It's going to sweat down anyways. And then you look at someone who's like, so the vitality is just like coming out of you, and you're like, all right, what is she doing?
Oh gosh.
All right, I do have to watch the shopping list. I do have to watch what she's doing. What is she cooking today? Because the impetus to feel better.
Yeah.
If you're not feeling that way, you feel like, oh, there's no option. I think one of the things I notice about myself is once you feel better, you're like, I didn't even know that feeling this good existed.
Yes.
Because you feel bad
Well,
for so
right.
long.
That's a lot of times I
Yes.
think that we don't know. We don't realize how bad we feel
Until you feel good.
Yes, until you feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When your baseline's blah, then you just think that's what's there until you think, wait a second, what if I could feel different? And and that's what happened for me a few years ago. I actually, I'm happy to be with the clinic now, Integrated Health Alliance. We're doing amazing work over there, but I have to tell you, I started as a client first.
Okay.
Because I was young 40s, and I was going through a lot in my personal life, which I have to be honest about, because that is such a big part of hormone balance with women. We seem to segregate things. We were just talking about mental health a minute ago. Oh, we have these boxes. Oh, we have our mental health. We have exercise over here. No, they are so connected. What you're experiencing in your personal life, your emotional health, will absolutely impact your hormonal picture. I call it the biochemical soup that we have going on. And, little stress here and there is one thing. Our body is designed to handle stress. Stress keeps us alive. Stress is the reason that our species has survived as long as it has to this point. But chronic stress, day in and day out, it takes a toll. And And so when this clinic found me, I was at a place where I was eating clean. I think we're all, at this point understand what it means to eat clean. I was exercising. I was at yoga, which was so good. I was doing these things, but I was stuck both in my ability on my personal weight loss journey, but just my feeling. I was so tired. I was exhausted. I was just run down, and I could not get outside of that. And so it was almost took a little bit of courage for me to say, well, what if what you just said, what if I could feel better? And so that really started my transformation.
And then also, I think we're so used to being the caretakers for everybody that it feels like, how do we ask for help?
Yeah. And that's why we need to have these conversations. And, Bill White, who I get to work with here, and he was starting to talk with me about the benefits of hormone therapy, but in particular testosterone therapy. I didn't know. Again, how would we know unless someone's talking to us about it, or unless we hear, hey, there's treatment options for you. If you're feeling this way, this could help you feel better. And so I'm so grateful that the information even came to me. And then once I felt like I had enough information, what's that whole, you're able to make an informed decision on what's right for you. And fortunately, I was able to have access, but so many women are unable to get access to hormonal health care, and that's a problem.
I also think that we have so I started taking testosterone from our doctor in Texas, and he's done a couple of podcasts and TED Talks about the difference of having testosterone in your body. And I could tell the difference just even in my joints.
Yep.
Like without having it, I think it kind of, it wasn't an overnight thing, but definitely we don't talk about sex and how important it is. And he talks about it, and like testosterone can actually save marriages.
You just said so much there. I'm like, oh my gosh. So first of all, women have 10 times more testosterone than we do estrogen.
Yes.
That's something we don't know.
Never heard of before.
Never heard of before. To this day, if you go online, certainly all the medical books, but even if you go online, when you research testosterone, you read testosterone, the male hormone, to this day. And I'm like, what is this? Yes, men have more testosterone, and it is very important for, developing, masculine features, but women need it too. And it does so much for our bodies. For the muscle composition and the benefits for muscle development alone, I think every woman should be on it. The leading, and I'm going to go off a tangent, but one of the leading causes of death for women as we age is osteoporosis. If we fall because we're frail and we're weak, we break a bone. Once you do that, now you're limited in your mobility. It goes quickly downhill from there. So the antidote to that is getting as much muscle on your body as you possibly can now. So anything you can do to support that should be in every woman's care plan.
Yeah, it's paramount because we had my husband's grandmother, she broke her arm, broke her arm again. That was more to do with, she was always very physically active. She used to walk every day. So she was very, very physically active. But the medications that she would have to take would make her dizzy. And then as you get older, you eat less because you don't want to turn on the stove because you're afraid of turning off the stove. And now you're taking medication without, I'm sorry, I think that's me somewhere. So she would have the medication in her system and be dizzy.
Yeah.
And so then she would fall. But we would always be terrified on the fall because there are so many times if you fall and break a lower limb, you end up never getting healthy enough from that point. After a certain age in your 70s or your 80s, if you fall, the downhill trajectory, there's this book called, I think it's called Outlive by Peter Attia. And he talks about your whole entire goal, especially after 50, is having enough muscle tone and enough balance that you will not fall.
Right.
So that you can keep the last 10 years of your life out of a nursing home and functional. And because he also says that exercise is and he didn't want to believe it, the strongest composition for you having to fight Alzheimer's.
Yes.
Is exercise. And he didn't want that to be the answer.
Yeah.
But exercise is the antidote to Alzheimer's.
Yep. I is so and even talking about the medication and the nutrition that we eat, these chemicals that we're exposed to leach minerals out of our bones. So we're really getting it at all angles. So when we talk about strong bones, strong muscle composition, we were talking about preventative medicine, and so that's why I want to see a day that hormone therapy is included on insurance plans as preventative medicine. Let's get there.
Right.
We know we have better outcomes for cardiac health, metabolic health. Back to testosterone, we've now had 2 long-term studies showing that testosterone is breast protective.
Yes. So it's like neuroprotective in women.
Neuroprotective, absolutely.
And it's like, so cognitive thinking,
Yes.
bone health, having the right levels of testosterone in your body.
For libido, it's huge. And you started to talk about it. And I do think we need to talk about it because one of the things, and I think all the kids are back in school, so this is fine, 10 o'clock in the morning to talk about sex in the middle of the day.
Always fine to talk about that.
But, and we actually are going to do a show about casual sex next week because we think that's a huge conversation to have as well. But sex in a marriage is the glue of a marriage. And especially for a very healthy, like a couple that has a healthy sex life, then menopause comes in. And the transformation that happens in a woman's body, and you want to say to a guy who has to live with her, right? Take all your testosterone and physically take it out of your body, throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
Because that's what it feels like for a woman's body.
Yeah.
Any part of me that made me feel like a woman was gone.
Yeah.
Any part of me that made me feel nice was gone.
Yeah.
I feel like I wasn't a nice person. I just had estrogen.
Yeah. Right.
And my first doctor wouldn't give me bioidenticals because I'm like, you need to do something because I'm going to stab someone. I'm
Yeah,
going to
right.
go to
Yeah.
jail.
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a chemical thing that's happening to me.
Yes.
It's overtaking me.
Yes.
I felt so terrible. And my doctor was like, we don't give hormones to women.
My
and I said,
estrogen levels are toxic
right.
for somebody.
Somebody is going to be on the other end of this. And I remember him saying to me, we don't give hormones to women. And I said, you have put me on hormones when I was 16 and I didn't have a period for 28 days. 3 months in a row, you put me on the pill. You
Good
have put me
point.
on, I have been on hormones my entire life. I was on birth control
Yeah.
for the first half of, in my 20s and in my 30s. So I was like, we most certainly give me hormones. And if it was good enough then, it's good enough now. But there was a bad study in the 90s. So I learned from a neuroscientist that in the 50s and 60s, as women were getting into perimenopause, they were given estrogen.
Yeah.
And then somewhere in there, they said, hey, you can't just give women estrogen without doing clinical trials.
Right.
So then they stopped. They started giving it to women who were in their 70s who had been through perimenopause, had not been on the hormone. And then they had this one study where it caused breast cancer.
The Women's Health Initiative.
The Women's Health Initiative. And then they said, oh, no, estrogen causes breast cancer. Take it off. And then they, for like 10 or 12 years. So why didn't my grandmother talk about it? Because my grandmother was on hormones.
Yeah.
But we just never talked about that.
You don't ever talk about stuff like
You
that.
never talk about stuff like that.
Hysterectomy,
Yeah.
If you had a hysterectomy or had anything, then they would put you on estrogen, to delay any of those, I guess, your menopause symptoms or
Yes.
to help counteract those. But I know that me taking testosterone, it has helped my menopause symptoms. When I don't have it in my system, I have night sweats, I'm hot flashes. I can feel it when I don't have it in my body. And the thing is, we don't talk about like the testosterone being balanced. And you think about, as you get older, when you are sexually active, with your partner, whatever, it's 2 or 3 times a week. Then you notice like, well, maybe we just do it 2 or 3 times a month now,
But I joke I
But we
can't
don't-
do math. So I joke that I need a certain amount of sexual activity or like my brain starts getting cobwebs.
Yes.
So we used to have this joke. I'd be like, ugh, I can't do that. And then I'm like, oh, when was the last time I had sex?
Well,
Maybe I can clear out
Yes.
the cobwebs.
Yes.
So what our doctor was telling us is, part of how it saves marriages is, you're balancing your hormone levels. But testosterone, so the clitoris and the penis are the same
They're
tissue.
homologs. Yeah.
Yes. It's made of the same tissue.
Yeah.
So the benefit of it, it stimulates, it gets more blood going back to that area. And so it makes you want to do, so it makes you want to have sex more and more.
It doesn't feel like a cheese grater.
But you don't think about
That's the first. Robyn, I hear all sorts of things. That was the first. I love it.
No, but I'm just saying, like, when you notice that, like, I'm not enjoying sex as much as I should, and this used to be a comforting release for me, and now I'm not enjoying it. And I did talk to my doctor.
But look at how society, TV, media, and everything, it's like always women don't want sex. It's just,
Yeah, have you asked us why?
Right. Well. So let's look at that. So talking about testosterone, right? So there are over 30 formulations that are FDA approved right now for men. Currently, there are 0 for women.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that most recently, and this has been some progress, both the North American Society of Menopause and ISSWSH, the International Society for Sexual Health for Women, have now come out in full support of testosterone therapy for women for sexual health, libido, and also genitourinary syndrome and menopause, which is such an important thing that we're not talking enough about. We screen for this in the clinic. Going to our conversation with sexual health, so much of that is, yes, women can have vaginal dryness and it can be painful, and then they can lose sensation, and then there's urogenital interaction. So there's this area of tissue, and
It's okay. We're going
button up. There we go. And the base of the vaginal wall, it's called vestibular tissue, and it's very sensitive to androgen deprivation. So as you start to lose testosterone and estrogen, this entire area, your vaginal wall, starts to have atrophy. Well, the vestibular tissue also surrounds the urogenital area, which is your urethra, your ability to have incontinence. And so when we talk about, we were talking about leading cause of death in women with osteoporosis. Guess what? Another one is UTIs. Because
Really?
because they get infections, persistent infections, and they are on antibiotics, and then this leads to bacterial resistant forms of infection, and it's nasty and it's difficult to maintain. But we now know that simply a dab of vaginal estrogen cream on the vestibular tissue not only improves vaginal health from a sexual perspective and vaginal atrophy, but urogenital outcomes. So much so that one of my favorite doctors on Instagram, Dr. Rachel Robyn, and I had the privilege of getting, I went to one of her conferences a year ago. And she advocates that every woman 50 years old on should have a prescription for vaginal estrogen in perpetuity. That's it, for the rest of her life. Because it's that safe and the outcomes are so beneficial that it's far worse to not have replenished hormone in that area.
Why couldn't they get it over why does it have to be a prescription?
Yeah.
Could it be something that it's,
that's a good question. It should be over the counter. It should be something that you're able to access. I would say something like a vaginal estrogen, because we know that it doesn't have a systemic effect. Look, we can't talk in extremes here. Does hormone therapy need to be managed by a specialist? Absolutely. Yes. If you've had a history of breast cancer, is that something that you should consider when you're looking at hormone therapy? Absolutely. Yeah. Does this mean if a woman's had breast cancer, a history, that she can no longer access hormones? No. There needs to be a coordination of care. There's a lot that goes into that. So it can't be all or nothing. Oh, hormones are right for absolutely everybody,
and everybody has
one.
Different levels. Like I joke around that I must have had high testosterone because I have been in a long-term married. I've been with my spouse since I was 22. And we've had a healthy sex life. Yep. And I feel like it was something that I probably, my husband, my father joked that you're going to want to have sex with your husband even when you don't want to. That was his marital advice for me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, don't worry about it. I think I want sex more than he does anyways. Yeah. Like it was something because love is my touch is my love language. Yeah. So to me, physical touch. Intimacy. That intimacy is where I really feel connected.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I noticed distinctly is at night I didn't want to snuggle because I was so sweaty from the night sweats. Yeah. Like I would wake up and I would feel my entire body prick and I would just start literally dripping sweat so that I'd have to get out of the bed and I would soak the bed completely. Yeah. And that's when I was like, and I talked to one of my a business owner friend of mine, and I said, I'm going to kill someone. And she goes, why aren't you on bioidentical hormones? And I said, I've been trying to get them from my doctor. She goes, go to my doctor.
Yeah.
And then I cried in her office because I couldn't stand myself.
Yeah.
I was so irritated, and there was no, I didn't even want to be touched. I felt so terrible. And that was my connection point with my spouse. And it was also a way to make me feel calm. It's I'm like the cat that needs to be pet. The joke, that we're all just puppies. We need to be walked every day. We need to be fed and we need to be pet. In absence of any one of those things, I couldn't figure out what was wrong, but I knew something was wrong.
And, and I love that you have such an awareness of how important intimacy is for you because, maybe, you've had a higher sex drive. It breaks my heart almost the amount of conversations that I have with women on almost a daily basis when I ask them about their sexual health and they just kind of look at me like, what about it? And I say to them, do you know that you deserve to have a healthy and sexy robust sex life and sexy and be sexy when I feel sexy.
Yes, keep that word in there. I like that word.
Stay sexy. You deserve to have that. Talking about the amount of FDA formulations and then all the blue pills, right? How many ED pills do we have for men?
So I joked that when that came out, I said, "Where's the Viagra for women?"
Yes. So
why are you giving this guy?
Well, I've seen those pills for the Hr1 and there's all these things.
Flavanserin, Bremelanotide.
Is there really a Viagra for women?
Yeah, they are now coming out with there's daily pills that you can take. There's some that you take when at the time of intimacy. Some compounding pharmacies have some troches that are available. That's an oxytocin, bremelanotide, and tadalafil combination. Those are helpful for a woman that again is just looking to use something at a time that she knows she's going to be intimate. A booster. So those things exist. These things and women need to know this.
All right. So and tell us how do they find it?
Right. So both flavanserin and bremelanotide, some formulations are available through your doctor. So when you're talking to your OBGYN, tell them your concerns and that, hey, I want my sex drive to be improved, and they should be able to write you a script for it. It should not be that big of a deal, because again, women, we deserve to have a healthy, robust sex life long into our years, as long as you want it, just like men may want to. And to your point, Robyn, earlier about the importance of sex life and a healthy marriage, absolutely, or healthy relationships. We jokingly, but not really, we say testosterone therapy is the new couples therapy.
Yes.
We actually have a couple special couples rate at our clinic for that exact reason, because so often we were hearing from men coming in and saying, hey, my sex drive's improved now that I'm on T, but my wife really isn't responding, or vice versa. Women are saying,
interested at all.
Yeah, she's not interested at all. And what do you do with that? Or a woman, hey, I'm starting to get awakened, but my husband seems to be, I think something's going on with this T. And so when you optimize the both of them together, it's so much more than just building muscles or, even though if we've already talked about the importance of that, it's that inner chi, it's that vitality, it's that life. That's ultimately what we all need to protect, right? That's what's going to keep us healthy. There's going to be things that are going to happen in our lives, whether it's, physical illness, mental, emotional, can you maintain your spirit to live a healthy, robust life? And it reminds me, you were talking about back in the 1950s. Do you know that we had robust clinical studies back in the 1930s looking at testosterone treatment for the care of women in perimenopause and menopause with fantastic outcomes. We've known for a very long time it's fantastic for women.
Why do they stop it?
Because lack of funding for women's clinical studies, lack of interest, and then as we moved along, some really bunk clinical studies that was done. Which, by the way, the Women's Health Initiative study, the hormone that was tested was not bioidentical. It was a synthetic estrogen pill made out of pregnant horse urine.
Nice.
Could anything be more opposite a woman than a horse?
Yeah, right. So and so one of my favorite, from back in the 1930s, when I think about the clinicals one of my most favorite finding ever was this phrase. It was testosterone therapy treatment course for both, and it was both men and women. And the researcher reported that all participants were less broken in spirit. I'm like, that's it.
That's amazing, because I feel like there's a lot of broken in spirits.
Yes.
Well, I think about it. So it's not just the sex. Like testosterone, it's not about the sex. I mean, it's a great benefit of it, but think about what it does to you. You're thinking about it. It's connection. You're connecting. And it's, how do I say it? It's the things that taking place inside of you to get you to the point where you want to have sex again. So you are feeling frisky, you're feeling horny, or
you're not irritated.
Right.
It's not that grating irritation.
So you think about the path that it's putting you on. It's because you're balanced. Now you're more able to operate like, oh yeah, I feel like that's who I am. You know, I think women, I think a lot of people reside in, I think we all have sexual energy. I think we all have sexual energy. Some people, we just exude it in different ways. But I think that when you get older, like I know for me, I was like, I love sex. I loved sex. But then I was like, all of a sudden, I was like,
take it or leave it.
Yeah, you kind of like,
but then you're like mentally, you know, like, no, I don't want to leave it.
And
I like that.
Like, wait, but then you get on that path of like, you don't really think about it, out of sight, out of mind, and you don't realize
it's
that
missing.
You've been missing it, and all the connection, all the things that go with just the act of, not just the act of sex.
Yeah, it's such a great point. You know, I talk with women all the time about, let's give our bodies the biological input it needs to know you're virile, you're alive, you're well, you're vibrant. Sex is certainly that type of level of input. And we talk about exercise and nutrition, sunlight, all the things we know we need to do. These aren't just good ideas. This literally gives your cells the input that you're alive.
Yes.
And because of the nature of society, I always say it's a consequence of modern society. We're indoors all the time. Our stress levels are off, you know, off the chain. I always combine off the roof, over the
off the charts.
Off the charts. Thank you. I knew that was going to get me. Off the charts. You know, and the chronic nature, the chemical exposure. I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
So I talk about this all the time because people, when I talk about food as, you know, you're going to have to eat decent food, right? I'll be the first person who just wants to eat pizza and Doritos and Coca-Cola and ice cream. That's what I want my diet to be, but that's not possible, right? It's not possible long term.
If you eat every like third day.
If you want to have a healthy life and to feel good, you're going to have to actually change the input. And there's always people go, my grandfather ate bacon, washed it down with whiskey, and smoked 47 cigarettes a day and lived to 100. And I'm like, he didn't live in 2000, whatever the year I would say it, because he was living when we weren't inundated with the chemical exposure. We weren't inundated with pesticides. We weren't inundated with hormone disruptors.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I loved you actually, I don't know if it was a live or a reel, but people are like, why do I need hormones now? No one else did this. It's like, well, no one had the level of hormone disruptors that we have in our food system or in our in the chemicals. We didn't have the amount of products we have today. Yeah. We now have like 30,000 products in a supermarket. In 1970, we had 10,000 products. And before that, we even had...
Look at women, you know, girls are starting their periods way earlier, you know, boobs, you know...
Developing really early.
Young men are, you know,
developing boobs
are softer. Just to put it frankly, both emotionally and physically, they're softer. Their estrogen levels are higher. Yes, because of the endocrine disrupting chemicals. You think about soy, right? So soy. I don't like to demonize any one, you know, food group. There's benefits here and there, but soy is a phytoestrogen, right? So it mimics estrogens, and it gives your body. It binds with estrogen receptors, and it gives your body that input. So, okay, a little soy here and there is fine, but guess what? Processed food it's in everything. Our farmlands have now converted to, I don't know the percentage, but
it's in crackers.
It's almost all soy. Yeah. It's in crackers. Anytime you have a chicken tender, you're eating soy, right? It's in the breading. And so when you have these young people that are just eating a mostly processed food, they're getting it at all angles, and it is causing problems. And then it goes into mental health issues too.
Yeah.
So it's all
Can
connected.
we talk about that a little bit? Because
Yeah.
then you talked about studies, and one of the thing I wanted to say was most of the studies that have been around regarding fasting, regarding all kinds of things, are tested on athletic males or males in general. So when one thing that I know was pushed a lot was intermittent fasting.
Yep.
They weren't testing hormonal women or post-hormonal women. And one of the things that I learned from my continuous glucose monitor was I do not need to fast. My blood sugar is off the roof, even if I eat nothing but protein, if I fasted. If I haven't eaten for more than 12 hours and I have 2 hard-boiled eggs, I might as well drink a Coke. It's the same exact response in my body.
Yep.
So I just think it's really interesting that when you hear the latest study, and we're bombarded with so much information on Instagram and Facebook and all of these things, and we're getting so much information all over the time, but you need to know, where is that sourced from? Who's involved in it? And I'm my own person. I'm my own biogenetic nightmare of activity over here.
Yes. No.
I might not be the norm.
I love that you're bringing that up, because in general, our society tends to be black and white, right? Glucose monitoring, everyone needs to get one of those to live, or intermittent fasting, now let's everyone do that. The cold plunge, now this, for example, the cold plunge, right? I love the cold plunge. It's amazing, tons of benefit, but it doesn't mean everyone has to go now sit in an ice cold tub every day to get benefits. How about put on your jacket on a cold day and go for a walk?
Yes.
Can
or
you
go rollerblading?
Can you do that? Can you get outside and get some cool, fresh air?
And some sunlight?
And some sunlight? See, we're so black and white. Intermittent fasting. So
Run around your yard naked?
Yeah. Well, that's always recommended. But so intermittent fasting, I think, is a really great example. So there's no doubt it can be a great metabolic / hormonal reset. It can be hugely beneficial for people that have gut health issues, that have GERD, real sluggish mobility, digestion. So I look at intermittent fasting as a tool. It's a tool. It might be great for a period of time to reset your system, to kind of get you back on track. Some people really flourish in intermittent fasting, but others don't. I myself do best with I do a lot of protein first thing in the morning. I need it. I need to get after it. And that balances my blood sugar well throughout the day. So it's not an extreme in it. And it frustrates me when I see the conversations, on the social media platforms where it's like, all this or all that, or, it's like there's benefits to both. I will tell you, though, we do know intermittent fasting studied in men, as you said, studied in men that their hormone levels, particularly their testosterone, declines over time. If they're using intermittent fasting for long periods of time, their testosterone plummets. We also see that to all my poor runners out there. I used to be a marathon runner myself. I love that. But if you are a male that's used to running and you've been running for a very long time, there's a good chance your T is very low. It's this kind of chronic stress situation the body goes through. The body perceives that stress. Wait, we're running again? What are we running from? Is there?
We can't make babies.
Yeah,
we're running.
Exactly. Is there a tiger behind me? Intermittent fasting. Why are we not eating? Is there a famine? Right? And so the body goes into kind of a withholding mindset. So many women that I work with, they might be on a low calorie, count for daily calorie count, but yet they can't lose weight. And because their body wants to hold on to absolutely everything that they are eating. Now, yes, calories in and calories out do count also. There is a lane for that. But I'm focused on more, what's that biological input that lets your body know you're strong, you're healthy, you're well. Look, our bodies are designed to work fantastic. They are.
They're a self-healing miracle.
They're self-healing.
I had AFib to the point where I was hospitalized and I lost 50% of the function of my heart.
Oh, my God.
And they said, after 3 days of testing in the hospital, we really don't know why this happened. So we're going to assume it's lifestyle. We don't know what your life is like, but maybe you should look at that. And I went to yoga and I thought, why is my body failing me? And the answer resoundingly was, you are failing your body. Working too much, playing too hard. starving myself, working out too hard. Like everything was too much.
Extreme.
And when I balanced it down, I can't tell you the last time I had a AFib event. So if I can cure an uncurable heart thing with no alcohol, like I've done a series of things. The first thing I did was like, I don't need alcohol because obviously, I need to do anything in my power, because my first appointment with the electrocardiogram was like 9 or 10 months after my event to see this one doctor. So I was like, well, I better do everything on my end so I can get to this appointment. Right?
Right.
And then it was like, by the time I got to him, I told him because he said, how often do they happen? They were happening every day. And they were debilitating to the point where sometimes I'd have to cancel my work day because I physically could get from my bed to the couch. But it felt like because my heart was not beating in rhythm with itself, I was exhausted. And I would still go work out, or I would still, on the days that I would just like, well, this is my life now, so I'm going to continue, But what ended up happening was, by the time I had gotten to that cardiologist, I was like, they happen maybe once or twice a month now. And he's like, what changed? And then I went through the list of lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
He said, what I would have done if you came right after is I would have stopped your heart and started it back up and told you to make every one of those lifestyle changes. And what ends up happening is people with AFib shouldn't drink because it's an inflammation. And what they do is they drink and then they're back in my office. You have just done everything I would have done. He's like, I just say, continue doing that. Call me if anything changes. And I've only gotten better over the 2 years. But that is how your body, left to its own devices, can heal itself.
Yep, absolutely. And these are the conversations we need to have, right? The ability to, access these things and improve your medications or not. So no, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So when you were saying that the body wants to heal itself, if we can give it a homeostasis, the body wants to find homeostasis.
Right. And I think about gut health a lot, right? How important gut is to hormone health. And so when women come and they talk to me and they say in our clinic, and yes, we're going to do bioidenticals, you're going to do a full evaluation, but what's going on with that gut? What's going on with your sleep? What's going on with your nutrition? And sometimes, like, I want to hold their hand. Like, I do a lot of telehealth, and sometimes we're in person, but, like, I want to hold their hand because I feel like, we were just talking about extremes a minute ago, right? How we can be so extreme in our society, particularly women. If we're perimenopause or later in life, we've been through the Slim Fast. We've been through the sugar-free, reduced fat, like really hardcore things, and grapefruit diets and everything else. And you name it, we've done it. And so when you sit there and you talk to a woman about her nutrition or exercise, you can almost see them kind of get into their shell. They're like, like either it scares them, or they immediately go, I'm going to fail, or not again, or is that really going to move the needle?
Or maybe I don't have the stamina. I have been starving myself for 28 years. I don't know that I can, if that's the only answer, I'm going to be fat.
Yes.
Right. The thing is, but cortisol has a huge impact on that too.
Of course.
Talk about, body health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is the chronic nature of stress, right, is going to elevate that cortisol. And again, there's a place for that. If there was something came crashing through our window right now, it's a much more complicated cascade than this. But a simple version is your cortisol is going to spike because there's a stress perceived. Well, cortisol makes your body release glucose sugar into your blood. Good. You want that because now you got to move. Something just came through the window. You got to get up. You don't know what else is coming. Get up, get out of the room. Thank you, cortisol. Thank you for that boost of blood, the sugar in my system so that I have the energy to move. But now here we are, fast forward, and you're sitting at your computer and a disturbing headline comes on, or you get an email, and it stresses you out. Now your cortisol goes up. Now your blood sugar goes up. But guess what? Are you jumping up and running anywhere? No. Are you burning that off now appropriately? No. You're sitting there. So now you have an elevated glucose. Now you have then elevated insulin comes next. Again, an appropriate response. Insulin's a good hormone, necessary hormone. hormone. But when we are constantly in these sorts of spikes of these things, insulin leads to fat storage. So you cannot, it's very, very difficult for women in particular to be healthy and to have balanced hormones if we're not talking about those things. So one of my passions is to talk about hormone optimized nutrition. So, and I love this, and this is what I try to connect with women when I'm like virtually holding their hand and talking to them, is like, listen, like we got to talk about nutrition, but I'm going to talk about it in a different way here. I'm not going to talk about let's take away. I'm going to talk about let's add. Let's nourish your body. I don't even start talking about, oh, we can't have this, can't have that. Because you know what? Most women, I'm not going to insult their intelligence. Most women are already trying. Everything. And I know that.
And they have done their research.
They've read 727 books about being skinny.
We have, yes.
I mean, you know, women, your listeners that might be listening to this right now are listening because they're interested. They want to know, right? They want to know more. And so I know this. So I don't even talk about restricting. I talk about let's add proteins. Let's add healthy fats to your diet. To talk about the king macro to give that biological input that someone's virile and fertile. I'm like, look, I'm not going to, you don't necessarily need to make babies right now, but we want your body to feel that type of level of vitality because we are living longer and we want to live a more robust, healthy life. We want to have a robust sex life. We want to have, great skin and everything else.
We want to have adventures.
We want to have enough
energy. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
We should enjoy it.
We want to enjoy it. So let's add. And so that's the angle I come at it. And I have to give credit. There's a fantastic book out there that was just so helpful. The author is Dr. Anna Kabeka. She's got a couple of books. One is Menu Pause. It's got all sorts of recipes that are great with different plans, and she gives an education as well. Her story is fascinating. She had some tragedy early in life, and she's in her 30s, and she went into menopause. Sadly, she lost a child, and so that's a very significant effect. But it just goes to show the power that these horrible events, psychological, emotional, mental health events can have on your physical body. We need to keep saying this because it's connected. I don't want women to compartmentalize this anymore. They go hand in hand. So here she is, and she goes into menopause early, and so she went on a sabbatical and traveled the world and wanted to discover what are women doing in other parts of the world. And she noticed that there was this vibrancy in the menopausal woman that she wasn't seeing. When we think about a menopausal woman in America, we're thinking of possibly an older woman, and she's kind of like she's at the end. No, her not only is not only is her metabolic health starting to wane. The sex life isn't even a topic, and we see that when women are past childbearing ages, doctors start talking to her about their sex life because somehow their sex life is less relevant after childbearing years.
Because you don't have that imperative. Your body every month as a woman is like, let's make a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
until
like
it doesn't, then you're like,
until one day it's like,
well,
oh my God, please don't let me be pregnant. Please don't one day. Oh God, please don't let me be pregnant.
So that's a nice benefit of menopause. But so she travels the world, and she noticed particularly over in Asia that women were very vibrant and doing so well. So much so, and I don't know the word for it, but it translates the way the term they use for menopause over there translates to second spring.
Wow.
A woman's
I like that.
second spring. And I was like, yes, that's
that.
it. A woman's second spring. And so she, took what she learned and she brought it over here. And so great book. And
we might have to change the name of our YouTube show now to Second Spring.
I like that.
I have hormone health in Second Spring, I think is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So, and I love that because there are so many times, like I love, and forgive me because I'm not going to think of her name right now, something Cameron. She talks about what creativity can you have after you retire.
Oh, I got it.
And so I will look that up, and I will have it after the break. But And she talks about this is another creative time in your life. And I think in the midst of menopause, the idea of being creative is like, how can I create something? I feel like everything is ending. But I do believe that in every end, there is another beginning. When something ends, yes, your fertile child making life, but all that energy that was very dedicated to making children.
Yeah.
Or the idea
But
of
you think about it, up
you
until
can make
you
something
get to
else.
menopause, you're pretty much taking care of a lot of other people.
yes,
Right.
And then you feel like, hey, I've got my freedom.
Right.
Because like I had kids in my 20s and now I'm getting, you've raised them, now I feel like it's me time.
Right.
And you shouldn't just feel like, well, there's no help for you. You're put out to pasture, your best days are or behind you. I feel like I want to live every day that my best days are ahead of me,
Yes.
not behind me.
Yeah.
And I feel like why don't we talk about hormone health? Why don't we
Yeah.
talk about menopause
Yeah.
more and more? Why aren't these things?
The Mayo Clinic did a survey not too long ago and then found that less than 7% of general practitioners are equipped to handle any matter of hormone health, and only 1/3 of OBGYNs have any sort of menopause curriculum.
Yeah.
1/3. And you think, what? This is where women are going for their gynecological care?
for their sexual health is the OBGYN.
Well, they don't even recognize sexual health for women. If you think that it's not even something that's discussed or talked about. Again, if you are a prepubescent, up through puberty woman, young female, you're getting your PAPs or taking care of you. They're talking about pregnancy prevention, STI prevention, all these things, and then certainly during your fertility years, you're having babies, you're getting ample attention and care. But then what?
right.
Then what?
Right. How can you can
Stop.
You can take a woman's body and plaster her all over billboards, swimsuits, naked body. There's some ways in society we celebrate the woman on the outside, like the flesh, like we're seeing, like
As a receptacle
like
for
sex sells.
yeah.
Like,
of course.
if you want to sell sex or sell something, then you put a woman in a sexy, but you don't talk about that's the shell, about the inside of it. And why aren't they trained? Why aren't more and more OBGYNs and doctors focusing on like the engine, not the car?
Yeah, it's the suck it up, buttercup. This is what happens when you hit a certain age. And one of my another amazing doctor and advocate, Dr. Mary Claire Haver, she has a great book called The New Menopause, and she says that menopause is a natural progression, but it doesn't mean it can't be harmful to a woman. So let's care for her in that process. Yes, some women go through it with no issue, but we are seeing an acceleration of quote unquote issues and symptoms. And again, I think it's the same reasons that we're now seeing men up to 65%. I've seen clinical studies as high as that are low in testosterone. So women are also in the same amount having more quote unquote hormone imbalance issues. They're going into menopause earlier, perimenopause earlier. Their symptoms are more severe, more long lasting. And we were talking about nutrition a second ago. Something else that I'm very passionate about. We talk about hormone imbalances and hormone therapy. Yes, we're talking about the sex hormones, right? Progesterone, estrogen, testosterone. But there's many hormones throughout our body. There is a huge correlation, and I want all women to know this, between when you hit perimenopause and beyond, huge correlation between perimenopause and insulin resistance. And you've seen that, Lisa, the benefit that monitoring day in and day out your response has been for you. Huge correlation where once, the women say to me, well, I used to be able to eat X, Y, or Z and no problem. Now I can't. Right. And so it's this androgen deprivation that starts to happen. And really it's up until menopause. It's the wild ride of up and down that women go through. the actual receptors for insulin are no longer as readily available as they used to. And so now we are more sensitive, or I should say less sensitive to insulin. This causes metabolic disorder if it's unchecked, or if you're not changing your nutrition, it eventually can lead to diabetes. But there's this huge, there's this huge gamut between normal and diabetes. And something I see a lot in conventional medicine is they'll only do something about it once your numbers come back and say, oh, you're diabetic.
And I'll give you a pill.
And I'll give you a pill, and here you go. What about all in between? And this is where I think integrative medicine really shines, because they're willing to look at that quote unquote normal range and saying, I'm not so sure this is great for you, because you're coming to me and you're having, you're sweating, you don't feel well, you're having weight gain,
poor sleep.
I do want to comment that hypoglycemia, you think of diabetes, of you're having elevated blood sugar. If you have bouts of hypoglycemia where your blood sugar drops, where you're really sensitive to a blood sugar drop, you just you can feel like it's kind of sweaty, I got to eat something, that also can be a sign of insulin resistance. It's the highs and the lows and the highs and the lows, and we need to know that. I almost want to use the word easily be addressed with nutrition.
Right. And we are going to talk about that in the second hour. Will you stay first for another hour?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I wanted to, we're going to be coming into the top of the hour here. We have about 2 more minutes, but I just wanted to say who we're speaking with. We're speaking with Naomi of the Integrated Health Alliance. We are talking about all things women's health as well as men's health. We're talking about hormone health. We're talking about our second spring. I would love to go into nutrition for the second hour.
Okay,
I feel like that's a huge one. And then I actually have a bunch of questions that people had DM'd. So I will get into those as well. I have two sets of questions. And is there anything you want to talk about too? While we're getting into that. All of it. I know. I do feel like the sexual health is so important because I think, and this is what I wanted to talk about when we talked about casual sex, is we have leveled the playing field with birth control and everything else, that women should have the same exact wild sex life that men have, of multiple partners and this. And I also don't think that's 100% healthy either. I think we have, we had this tamping down of sexuality, the good girl type thing. And then you had this opening up, and I don't think either extreme is really good. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have the talk about, casual sex coming up next week.
And I love it. And I say whatever is right for the woman, let's get her body ready to do just that.
Just that, yeah. So you're listening to Lisa and Robyn on the mic on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live as well as Facebook and YouTube. We're going to go to the top of the hour here shortly, and we'll be back to discuss hormone health and our second spring with Naomi from Integrated Health Alliance. We'll be right back.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at WSMN.live.
This is a special report from ABC News celebrating Jimmy Carter. I'm Sherry Preston.